Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for this first session in a new series of LinkedIn Live events that we're hosting called the 1% Club. Not to be confused with answering annoyingly difficult logic-based questions. On the other hand, we'll be interviewing people that we believe are in the top 1% of the financial planning sector. So for those of you who don't know who I am Alistair Brownlee. I'm a director at BWD Search and Selection, and we are an FS specialist recruitment firm. I'm joined by my colleague and fellow director, James Woods. Between us, we've got about 100 years worth of experience of working with financial planning firms and placing financial planners, which leads me nicely onto our guest today, who is Anne-Marie Atkins. How are you doing, Anne-Marie?
All good, all good.
Good. So Anne-Marie is a partner at Evelyn and head of their entrepreneurs team, and she's widely regarded as one of the top financial planners in the UK. So this session today, I guess, is about exploring your habits and your behaviors that have made you so successful. And we hope that the people who have tuned in will be able to take away some practical and useful tips. So we are kind of short of time really for something like this. We've got about 45 minutes. So if we get started, so if I hand over to you, James, who I think you're going to tee up the first
absolutely.
question.
Yeah, so some of you may already know Anne-Marie, but just to give everybody else a bit more of an introduction. So as Ali said, Anne-Marie's a partner at Evelyn, where she spent the last 15 years. As well as being an accomplished and highly rated advisor, she heads their entrepreneurs proposition across the UK and leads a very successful team. And her wider responsibilities make Anne-Marie's client-facing achievements even more impressive. As you'll see at the bottom of the slide, we've included some figures to add some context to this discussion, and no, those aren't typos. So Anne-Marie has built a client base with over $1 billion under management, and over the last several years has averaged around 200 million of new assets each year, often passing much of this to her team. So today we'll get under the bonnet of just how she's achieved this. So Anne-Marie, welcome. My first question, I guess, is an obvious one. How do you fit it all in? Do you need to be a member of the 5 a.m. club to be in the 1% club?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, being psychotically organized obviously helps, and having lots of processes, shortcuts, and with the addition of AI now, that's meant that we can be more efficient. So I think I am quite sensible in how I attack my diary and how I color code the time that I need to spend on certain things. So and I have a really positive mental attitude. So, you know, I want to get up and get things done and make sure everybody's happy, team and clients.
Fine. And you've said to us before you're very process driven. So what are those, what is your process when you're looking at, bringing on board or building new relationships, whether that be with a client or an introducer? What is your process?
So I'll talk about clients first. I think we all have the different ways in which we meet clients, but I have when I sit with the client at a first meeting, I'll be very rounded in how we'll go through a style of fact find. It won't feel like a fact find, but I'm getting all of the relevant parts that I need. And I always use something called an asset schedule when I'm sat with clients, where I'm gathering data and I'm able to highlight things pretty quickly to them. For example, like the current IHT situation or the changes that might happen to them after the 6th of April 2027. So I use tools in meetings and with clients to start a process of how I'm going to formalize a meeting note. And then I always do a meeting note after a meeting. I don't feel like I can carry on the next part of the process if I don't put everything in writing to the client, which obviously has been helped a little bit with AI. Mm-hmm. I like to make sure I'm reinforcing the discussions that we've had and the opportunities that we've got to make things better for them, and signposting where I want to maybe have better relationships where there are other trusted advisors. So really starting to help them understand that this is going to be a collaborative approach for the whole collective intelligence piece of pulling together to give them better outcomes. So following that, I have a touch point, usually make sure I touch point with the client within 5 days, talk them through maybe what their aspects are if they're not sure, and then move straight through to sort of engagement terms, and then a constant way in which me and my team keep that client communicated with through the process. So it's not just my processes, it's the way in which we've set the team up to make sure that clients are feeling loved and cared for and updated at all times, and we set their expectations correctly. So for me, that's just like an org chart of I'm doing X, Y, and Z at certain times. And sometimes if I've missed something earlier on, it upsets us all in the team because we're like, what? That's not there. That's not right. So, and I finesse those things over time. So I'm always looking back at how can I make a meeting note clearer, more direct, sentences that work better, what worked well. So, process for me is just part of everything that I do. I'm totally like that. I'm like that when I'm giving advice. Really talk through, you've got these 3 options, 2 of them I'm discounting, these are the reasons why, this is why we're looking at this course of action. So everything follows a process in my brain. And then I think, go on.
I was going to say, how much has that process evolved, and have you found the right process now, or will it continue to evolve, do you think?
I mean, I think it should always be evolving, just as our industry is, and the way in which advice is evolving with everything that's thrown at us from the changes from the government and whatnot. And I do think it's important to block time out in your diary to take time to reflect a little bit on, because you can get sometimes caught up in the same habits. And if you're not refreshing and reviewing those, that might hold you back. I've had to take some time to make sure I'm looking at what I can do differently with AI. And that's actually, at first I was in a little bit of denial. And then it's actually winning me over. Yeah, it's winning me over a little bit now, and having a team to work with where there's different sort of capacity in my team and age ranges, where we're all sitting down and sharing the shortcuts that we might find, or how an agent might help us with something better. So it's really good if you don't just do that yourself, but as a team, you're all working together to share ideas for the greater good.
So we had a round table at the back end of last year, and sat down with some leaders from financial planning. And I think, am I right, James, that like probably the main thing that they were saying that came from it was really the note taking. It was kind of like the note taking was basic. Obviously loads better. Obviously, compliance were far happier with notes that were AI driven than someone remembering to write a note. Is that kind of where you are? Is it? Are we still at it's a better note taker, or actually is there anything beyond that you think AI is helping you with currently, or will do in the near future?
I think it's obviously taking notes, but it's how you then create your agents to manipulate that note so it's in your style, or in the language of a financial planning services firm, that you can then do a really comprehensive note to a client. Or these are all the things that you raised with me during our call that are important to you. It can do all that in 30 seconds flat, can't it? With your tone. I think you've got to put a little bit of effort in around making sure you've got the right tone and you set your agents as you would want them. But once you've done that, it's brilliant. And clients are really seeing and understanding it. And often clients will join now with their own note taker on our calls, because they'll have their way that they want to interpret meetings too. So yeah, no, it's good. And I think it'll help our industry a lot, especially from the compliance angle too.
Yeah.
How big a part has technology played in terms of the assets that you've been able to bring on in recent years? We saw some of the figures there, which are clearly a lot more than most. How much has technology sort of allowed you to sort of up the ante in that respect?
I mean, I do think when you're dealing with clients at a certain level, the company that you're working with needs to have the right client portal where they're able to follow and track performance and data really easily, and have different ways in which they can share information confidentially in the world that we live in. So from that part, it's good. When we talk about tech, we use Voyant cash flow as part of how we might communicate with clients and bring to life ideas or scenarios that can often feel really, really scary decisions to make, and they're big decisions. But being able to use cash flow and use that live, I think that's for the biggest styles of clients that I've been dealing with, when we are talking about transferring shares before a business sale into a structure, and can we afford to do that, or can we afford to give away future growth, and all of that. If you can put that into a cash flow and make it look simple, helps them make bigger decisions. And I think that's definitely helped me in how I've used that language and those visuals to take a client through a journey and make a very big decision about doing something for them and the family. So, and I think that will, the tools are getting better. They're able to incorporate different tax structures better. I don't think they're perfect yet for clients where you've got different legal entities providing different forms of income, but we find our way around it to make it as best as we can for clients so that it tells a sensible picture of what they're trying to achieve and what it looks like.
Okay.
Right.
And obviously, as we said about the numbers, very unusual. What are the key things that you think you do differently to other advisors? What's the secret sauce?
I know you've asked me that before. I think what I would say is, I've been doing this job for, I don't know, 25 years. And I think I've changed probably more so in the last 8 to 9 years massively, because I've started to deal with clients with different levels of wealth. And I've been fortunate enough to be in rooms with accountants, solicitors, corporate finance. And I've listened to things differently as to how they might explain part of a piece of advice, and I've taken that into how I conduct myself. So I think when I'm sitting with a client, starting to think, where am I going with this? I tend to want to seek to understand all of the aspects of the plan, and that might be legals, that might be the tax implications of a structure, and why we might do different things through that structure. If it might be a limited company structure, it might be an existing discretionary trust structure. Really, I will want to make sure that I am conducting a relationship with the client and their other advisors that will mean that we are all pulling together for a truly superior outcome, without sometimes allowing one part of that jigsaw to be transactional or to be very blinkered because they can only talk about one thing. And when you do get that working well, I think clients see it, and that they actually put a lot of trust in the team. And that's where you get more client referral work. Solicitors are like, that was a really good meeting, we should be doing that with our other clients. That's where I've seen the changes in how I've attracted new client work change, because I'm suddenly using language that I'm listening to and hearing from other people, and I'm able to put that into something that I get complimented on quite a lot. I speak in really plain English. I don't use jargon a lot with clients, and I'm quite direct, and I just make decisions very quickly. So I think those are the things that differentiate, like, from your average planner to someone who's actually just stepping up the ante and doing that little bit more. I mean, I've called it for years conducting the orchestra. I want to be the person that is reaching out to the different people and making sure nobody has assumed something incorrectly. I have made mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes. And I'd learned one where I'd made a couple of assumptions. Well, surely the solicitor would have done that, and that would have been, because that's what they do. But actually, they hadn't done what I'd assumed they'd done, and it put a delay as part of doing something prior to a business exit. And everybody was just like, well, that wasn't my job. Well, somebody had to engage the client, but just everybody was not. So I have my checklist now, and I make sure that I'm clear on who's doing what, and that's something that's come with experience and learning from things that haven't gone well.
Is that something that all financial planners could do or should be doing, but maybe they just don't have the confidence to do that, and they think that their role is just to go in and talk about that, and then there's an accountant, there's a solicitor, there's a whatever, there's a banker in the background, but actually you take that more holistic view, saying, well, no, actually I want to be at the center of that.
100%. I think I like to think of myself almost like a mini family office.
Right.
That I'm like the person that is going to make sure everybody's talking to each other, and that we're interlinking actions. If a client's got more than one accountant, or one accountant that looks after his business and a personal accountant from a tax perspective, and they don't talk, that's also really not good. But people get into habits of doing what they've always done without thinking, actually, could it be done differently or better? There's no reason at all why any financial planner can't take a step back and say, actually, I know I can give advice on this, this, and this, but this element here is going to impact over there if those two don't communicate. So I don't see why you can't. One of the things I talk to my team about is, if you meet a client for the first time and they've got a limited company and they've got an accountant, ask to meet the accountant. Ask for the introduction, ask for a copy of the articles of the shareholder agreement, ask for these things. And if you read it and you don't understand something, start a relationship with the accountant or the solicitor. Let's make sure we all understand what that client's got and why. And if we need to make changes, then we can all work together to make it better. So I think it isn't actually difficult. It's just having to want to do a thorough job, I think.
Yeah.
And in terms of that sort of conductor of the orchestra approach, when you're meeting with a new professional introducer or one that you're trying to build a relationship with, do you set your stall out at the start in terms of this is the way I work? I will be at the centre and I will make sure that everybody is playing their part.
Yeah, I mean, when you're explaining that how you run a client relationship, you want to hear it both ways, don't you? Effectively, because you want to know that you've got similar values. Because part and parcel of getting a new client relation, a new COI relationship, we call them COIs where I work, centers of influence. With an introducer, that you really want to make sure you understand. Well, have they got the same values? Are my clients going to enjoy a relationship with them? Are they going to get a good experience if I refer my clients to them and vice versa? So I'm not keen to just share my side of that story. I'm really keen to understand how they operate, to find if that synergy is there, if that feeling of mutual value and respect of what a client's going to experience is the right one. And you kiss a few frogs in our world, don't you? I've definitely maybe not asked the right questions all the time or thought of it in that way. But as I've gained experience, I've understood that generally most of my relationships with clients, because we carry similar values, and it's important that I work with people of the same style when I'm referring client work out. I always want to make sure that I can think about if I can help them if I'm working with a new introducer and how they can help me. I think reciprocity is really important. And I always make sure, if I say on one of those initial meetings, if I get a feeling that I like the style that they're showing, that the quality and the data looks good, if we're looking at different ways in which they'll pitch or explain a client scenario from a tax perspective, if I'm getting the feeling that I like that, then I will say, well, I'll go all out and I'm going to make sure I get my next client referral. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to give you the opportunity to impress me because I like what you do and I want to now see it in action. I definitely have those conversations much more now, and then I follow it up. I actually do what I've said I'm going to do, and I make that client referral, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? Really. What I always say to my team is, people buy people, so you find commonality, don't you? If you've got similar interests, family traits, like to go on. I like to work with people where I enjoy their company and they enjoy mine. So personality and hobbies and things like that, they also go a really long way as to how you might conduct a relationship with someone, because people remember you, don't they?
So going back to your process, do you kind of, again, take meticulous notes? So it's like, he's a Man City fan, I'm going to remember that next time, or whatever. Or, do you know what I mean?
Paddle player. Is he a paddle player? Is she a paddle player? Yeah, like a paddle.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing around business development, I mean, we obviously do our benefits and salary census, which is in its 13th year, and that report will be coming out in a few weeks. So we've just gathered all of the questionnaires from all the financial planners around the country that are filled in. And the one thing that comes out of that is that the area that is still the biggest challenge is business development. That's the area that financial planners still say they need the most help with. So it's this kind of BD, hunter mentality kind of thing. So, as you say, you've been doing this for 25 years, and you've seen lots of advisors come and go. Why is it that a lot of financial planners struggle with business development?
I mean, it's interesting as well, isn't it? Seeing, I think there's a big gap in our industry in respect of the age ranges of people that are coming through, and I think just the way in which I'm of a certain age, right? So I've accumulated a lot of experience. I've got a big client book, and I feed clients down to members of my team. So there's less need for them to hunt, because I do quite a bit of hunting and BD. I don't think I seek to do it. I think if you do good things happen. And that tends to be like a snowball effect over time. But I do think that the scary bit now is we'll think about, so I might say, this is a brilliant idea, you can go and use this with your contacts, but actually you can't just take a fact sheet of something that sounds all right and send it to someone and expect that, well, I sent an email on that and I've not heard from them. You've actually got to understand what is their audience, how is that going to help their audience, and then find a hook to take it in to say, this is, if you don't think of it like this, you're going to be letting your clients down, and we can really help add to this. And that's a great way for you to go and get more activity. It's going to help your business, and it's going to help me to get an opportunity to clients in your business. So I have those conversations with people in my team around, it's all well and good, you've had a coffee, but then what? What's the next step? What are you doing next?
Yeah.
Can you think of, like, sorry to put you on the spot, but could you think of an example of something that you've used practically, like recently, that's worked?
Yes. So earlier in the year, obviously, we had the Rachel Reeves situation in respect of what was happening to business relief.
Yeah.
And as I'd said earlier, I always use an asset schedule, and I put together inheritance tax calculations for that. And I've got lots of business owners. I've got lots of corporate lawyers that I work with, and private client lawyers, and tax advisors, where it was just at the beginning of January, and everyone gets focused on the 31st of January if they're an accountant to get things done. And I was just thinking, nobody is talking about the burden that business owners are going to have in respect of this change to IHT, or how are they communicating it with clients? And they've got a very short time if they want to maybe do some other things. So I put together a spreadsheet, which was just an example business owner spreadsheet. And I reached out to like my top 10 contacts to say, look, guys, I know it's on the radar, but this is a financial calculation of what it could look like if someone owns a business at 20 million quid. You know, this is really worrying. What are you doing? How are you speaking to your clients? And are they even aware of this? Do you think they've seen it like this? And we got 3 really good client referrals from that because it resonated. They might have had something on the desk that they were looking at, and it's that live. So I like different ways to communicate with the people that I work with. You know, there are people that provide us with work, and we provide them with leads flow. But I think there's lots of, you've got to be coming up with ideas, and you've got to make regular contact. And then sometimes you've just got to have no idea and a drink and remind them that you like to play paddle. It's a mixture of everything. It's not one size fits all, and it's got to be regular.
So like you say, it's finding that hook and almost creating that fear that they've missed something for the clients perhaps, and highlighting that as a potential area of concern for them.
Yeah, we're starting to, as part of the entrepreneurs vertical, we're starting to look at the insights that we create and more articles that are actually helpful in giving someone that light bulb moment of, God, I really need to think about that. Yeah. So we're really trying to think more about how do you create the fear and the hook with just using some data around something that is going to impact on somebody. And the articles that we're doing are being more succinct, and they're not sort of like product driven. It's more, these are ideas around different solutions you might need to think about, but it is trying to generate thought.
Yeah. So where does most of your new business come from, Anne-Marie? Is it from professional introducers? Is it from referrals? Is it a combination? Where did you set your stall out? I was looking back, and we actually placed you at Tilney back in 2010. Yeah. So that's where the relationship goes back to that. And you were at Lift before that. And I think you were a decent financial planner, but certainly nothing like you are now. So what was the change? What was the kind of the thing that made you sort of switch into this kind of sort of, the planner that you are today?
It was interesting. I think when I first started out, I got thrown in at the deep end when I worked at Lift, and I just got asked to go and sit in an accountant's office and see if I could get any work. So, it was good. It's sink or swim, isn't it, in that situation? And I got to learn a lot on the ground floor there about tax. And I think for me, a lot of how I conduct relationships and how I drive what I say financial planning and strategy is around the tax and the strategy of a client situation before I even go anywhere near talking about investments. I'm very much driven by tax. I think as time's sort of gone on, when I joined, we're Evelyn Partners now, but when I joined back in 2010, I was told I was walking into something that there was clients and everything. Anyway, there was not a lot of anything. And it was, again, I was literally just, there was an in-house sort of attached accountancy firm, and I was sat with accountants again. So for me, the tax part of how I've been driven to think has probably been the most successful part of where I've come from. And then over time, I've seek to work with other tax advisors. I would say tax advisors, corporate finance are good, prolific introducers for me. Corporate lawyers and private client lawyers. It's not, I'm not getting 15 referrals a year from people like that, but I might get 5 or 6, and they are good quality referrals. And we'll talk around, a lot of the time I might refer stuff out that would be classed as bread and butter work. So I might prenups, wills, lasting powers of attorney. Could you have a look at the structure of X? And then it gets more interesting if it is pre-sale planning work or company restructure or the use of a limited company structure as part of a bigger plan. That's work that you can tender out for, and you've got the opportunity to obviously do the right thing and work with the right firm. So I think that's snowballed into a lot more. But I tell you what, I think my biggest, if I looked at the last 12 months, would be client referrals.
Right.
Once you're in a group of working with clients that own businesses, they really know lots of other business owners. And I think I'm just not afraid to say, look, we're a growth business, and I'm really keen to meet people that you might know that I can help. You've had a great experience, and I'd like to do that with somebody else. So if you ever would like to pass on my details, I'd really appreciate that. It's nice to get those things in, and sometimes that takes time, but you've got to remember to say that and let people know that you're open for it, I think.
Absolutely.
So what you're describing is quite is quite technical, isn't it, in terms of the sort of the range of financial planning. We're at this end of technicality. Would you say to someone who is sort of starting out or looking to make their way that they really do need to become quite a technical financial planner to be able to advise the more complex clients to get into the more high net worth and ultra high net worth market?
Personally, to do the work in the space with the higher end of the market, I do think the more expertise that you have, the easier it is to shine in a meeting and to make clients trust you sooner. So if there's an opportunity to, shadow someone or to put into ChatGPT or any other engine, why would somebody consider investing into a limited company structure or a family investment company as opposed to X? You can read that data. The best training you can get is on the job training where you hear it live. So we do a lot of, it's important to share, isn't it? And I would want my team to all be competent to be able to pick up any of my client work if I'm not around. So we do lots of where we do joint meetings together, and I think that's important. Our industry needs to allow the time for people coming through with different levels of experience to gain that experience, and they're not going to read it by reading a textbook or doing an exam. It's on the job training, I'd say, because you can really bring that to life in client meetings. I saw a client last week, this happened. It just resonates better when you're trying to explain a situation.
Absolutely. I think in terms of people coming into the industry, it's an interesting point. You said that you started with very few clients, and you had a connection to sort of work with an accountancy practice. But do you feel that there is sometimes a lack of willingness to go out and win business amongst sort of the newer generation of advisors, in terms of expecting to be seeded with more of a full client base than you perhaps once were?
Yeah, I see that, and I see that across. I've got different friends in different who work at different places, and we talk about it. There's lots of, even in our business, there's lots of ways that we'll hand clients down, so they're not actually having to go out and find new client work. And a lot of people can get really caught up in servicing, can't they? But it depends how you're rewarded. If you work for a business that might reward you purely on ongoing servicing revenue, then that might make you not feel that you need to go and earn more. I think what we're seeing now is there's not as, people want to get the work-life balance different, don't they? So since COVID, I think we've probably seen a bit more of less of that mentality about going out and being hungry to go and find lots of new work, and actually starting to think, oh, I quite like a nice balanced view of X and Y. I've never really thought about it. I've just, my career seems to have, you do good things and good things happen, and then your brand becomes your brand, and you're suddenly getting all of these different client referrals, and you don't want to let anybody down. That's like the most important thing is if someone's kind enough to ask me if I can help someone, the last thing I would want to do is say, oh no, and make sure all your team have got the same attitude around that too. So it'd be nice to maybe see, and I can see it in some people that I work with where they are hungry and they are really keen to go out and do better, and they'll want to do the shadowing piece. I think we just need to remember that it doesn't happen overnight. You know, if you work in new relationships with an accountant, a solicitor, it's going to take 1, 2, 3 years maybe before it might be fruitful. You can't just say after 3 months, well, I've not had anything, so I won't carry on. You know, that's, I think it's a little bit of resilience, isn't it? You know, I definitely know throughout my career, I have gone to networking events that I definitely wouldn't do now. Or if I do go now, I make sure it's because I want to speak to 3 people and I'm keen on making sure I speak to those 3 people. So it's finding time to sort of like, how do you build that into your diary and how do you make sure that you're measuring it? And I said earlier, didn't I, that I color code my diary, and I have a color for working or doing BD, and it's green. My favorite, you know, green's like go. And I make sure across my month that I've got at least 20% of my diary color coded green. If I'm not doing that, I'm not going to be continually looking at how the new stuff's coming in. And then with the teams that work, you know, people that work in my team, we all color code. And then when we do one-to-ones, we're making sure that we're seeing that everybody's being active, and trying to make sure they're doing that BD stuff. So if you manage it the right way, it's going to happen. I suppose you've got to want to do it, haven't you, really?
It's a really good visual way of looking at it. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, you've led me into that quite nicely. I mean, you've got to want to do it. What's your mindset for sort of continuing to do this? Because anyone could easily look at you and go, "Oh, I just take my foot off the gas. I've got X, I earn Y. You know, I'm at the top of my game." What drives you to kind of keep doing it? What's your mindset for kind of doing 20% BD per month? You know, most people might go, "Oh, it's fine. I'll wait till next month."
Do you know what? I really enjoy it. So I like what we do for clients. I like bringing what we do to others. I like meeting new people. I am really curious and quite nosy. So, you know, I think those things are part of just my DNA. And I have thought at times, you know, well, I could just relax a little bit and do a bit less. But when that happens, I seem to get more client referral work, you know, and then I don't like letting people down. I think, you know, I take that very seriously, and I think that's the problem, isn't it? Once you've built up a brand and a reputation and people come to you and you want to help them and they trust you, that it's a natural, it doesn't sort of stop. It doesn't just switch off. I never know at the beginning of each year how I'm going to hit my target for the next year. And you know, there's always that little bit of fear of this might be the year that I don't actually hit target. But I don't think about it. I just keep doing the good behavior stuff and making sure I've got my time logged out in my diary and I'm doing my BD for a portion of every week or month. And as long as I keep doing that and making sure that I've got my activity, then it's going to roll into continually bringing on board new clients and passing on other clients within the team, and really growing our little team for the greater good. And so clients all have a very similar experience, which is really about quality and excellence, and overwhelm, like not underwhelming them, really making sure they're impressed with what we do.
If you had to kind of break it down and just give a couple of tips, you know, if you had a new person coming into your team, or there's someone out there who is kind of just starting out, or they've just moved company and they need to get things going, what would you say? What's the 2 things that they really need to do to get things going? So from a BD perspective,
I mean, activity is the key point, isn't it? Do the research on the firms wherever you might live. If there's any local groups they do like local business networking groups, don't they? If you live in East Lancashire, you could join a business networking group. Go and join some groups. Get yourself out. Put yourself in your uncomfortable zone. You know, it's not nice when you're not used to doing it. I always used to say, I remember somebody said this to me a long time ago, you know, have 3 little stories that someone will remember if you meet them at a networking event, so that when you send an email follow-up or you call them, you're like, well, I'm the lady that told you the story of X, so they remember. So something a little, I mean, I've got a personality, right? So I'm always going to be a little bit crazy. So I've got really good 3 go-to stories, and you know, one of them is I've been on a number of game shows, so I'm like, I'm the game show queen, you know, just so that people can remember who you are, because people remember people. So I think
Have you been on the 1% club?
No, I haven't actually. I've not been on Games Club for a while, but yeah, I'm definitely on Sky Gold. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's having the confidence, is it? Because it can be quite nerve-wracking when you're going out for the first time and still figuring out who you are as an advisor and what you're about. So, you know, the 3 stories things, I think, was always something I'd been told, and I share that with my team. And again, you know, sport's a great way, isn't it, to see different sides of people and get stuck in differently. I don't play golf, but I do play paddle. So paddle's been a great way to spend time with people differently and see the competitive edge and you know, make sure you beat them at every opportunity. It is that, isn't it? You've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to do things that are uncomfortable or that you're going to have to organize. But if you don't put time in your diary to do it, you're going to find excuses not to do it. And then you've got to find local events or things that are good where you're going to meet like-minded people. Like, you know, when you think about the young professional groups for sort of accountants, lawyers, wealth management, they're all the same. Everybody wants to be able to find the next new way to do BD and to find new clients. Well, you just got to say, I quite like you. I really want to work with you. I need clients. You need clients. Let's do something together. Let's go and try and get some activity going together. I think when you do collaborate with third parties in that way, and even sometimes internally, if you've got investment managers, depending on the type of outfit that you work for, the more that you can do together as a team on team or thing like it does work, and it means that people pick up different slack and there's different personalities there to really drive things forward.
So you think at a very basic level, people maybe just aren't asking if they meet someone that they like who's an accountant or a lawyer, just say, look, it'd be great to do some work with you. We get on, we seem to get on. I'm better than you at paddle, but you know, could maybe give you a few tips.
Yeah, I mean, most of my friends now that I've met through work, I've got friends that I've met through work. It's because we've enjoyed each other's company and we've got similar values, and it's not always paddle, but we like to do things together. We'll see each other socially now as friends, as opposed to it always being the work thing. But that's how it starts.
And in terms of the professional introducers, just so people have an idea, I mean, how many touch points would you generally have with one of your professional introducers over the course of, you know, a quarter or a year?
I mean, you know, at least once a quarter, if not more.
It
depends on the type of client work you're dealing with. I think the great thing is when you do collaborative work without realizing that you're communicating because it's live client work. So you know, that's a touch point, isn't it, when you're sharing stuff? So that's quite good when you're doing the collaborative piece, because you're automatically not having to think about, God, I haven't spoken to them in 3 months. So I have a spreadsheet that I tend to use where I'll have ideas to contact, last contact, when I last made a referral to a professional introducer, when they last made one to me, or if one of my teams made a referral to them. Try and really think of it that way. So sometimes I might be driven by, well, I've got some really good content here. We've done a great article, or Rachel Reeves has just given us a gold mine of things to throw at people. Then I'll use that, but I won't bombard them all at once. I mean, and I won't do it all via email. You know, there's lots of different ways that people like to communicate. I think in person is always more important, because you tend to refer to someone who you've seen them more recently. So the more you can make sure you're being seen regularly, the more likely you are.
Fresh in the mind, absolutely.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, we talked about you being a machine, but it does sound like it's a machine in terms of how organized it is. Everything is on the spreadsheet or a process, whichever part of it is.
It is, because you can see and measure then, can't you?
Yeah.
If it's in your head, oh, I should do that, or I'll get to that next month, I'll get to that next month. You know, that's why I make sure I, you know, set things through like a one-to-one form business plan, make sure that we're thinking about it, and then not being afraid to say, well, we really tried that, but it really didn't work, and we need to spend no more time with that firm. You know, like literally there's a stop on us doing work there. It's all one way. I think you've got to be brutal to have those chats too. But when you're starting out, you know, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's going to take time, and you've got to put in the effort, and you're not always going to have fun things to talk about, or you might not have a client to refer, but you've still got to go through the process of the contact.
You talk about sort of, I think we touched on it before, sort of building that positive reputation. what should people be doing to build that positive reputation? And what have you found over the years? Because you said, you haven't always got it right. What can instantly damage that reputation that you advise people against?
Yeah, I think the reputational damage piece is, if you say you're going to do something, don't mess it up. Don't not do it. I think, especially when there's clients at the end of it, that's the most important thing in it. That's all of our like underlying view is that the client comes predominantly first. I think what I mentioned earlier about not making assumptions, never assume. I've definitely learned from that it's not something. Never assume. Always ask an extra question. Document it. But put pressure on others to give you answers that you need for a better outcome. I copy in clients to things like that if I'm working with third parties, so that they can see that it's not me holding up something and that it's somebody else and I'm trying my best to get it done. What else did you ask me, Alistair?
That was it. I think it was just sort of, how do you ensure a positive reputation, and what can you do to avoid kind of messing that up, essentially?
I think the other side of that, and I'm a stickler for this as part of my process and OCD-ness of stuff, is do a really formal meeting note after a meeting and copy in someone's accountant or solicitor if they've given you permission to, because that just makes you look even greater in front of these third parties who probably aren't getting that from a lot of financial planning firms. If I have a relationship, I want to make sure they're seeing that these are the things and these are the questions that I need clarity on their accountant from. So I think that really helps raise your reputation and your brand and stands you apart from others, because you're trying to be more professional and you're not just seeing a client not doing any notes and throwing out a letter of engagement really without a lot of the data or the content behind how you're going to help them and why it's important. So even sometimes if a client says, "Oh, I didn't really read the note, I loved you anyway," I still do the note and I still make sure that I've got that on my file and I'm sharing it with other parties that are involved in that relationship. And a good way on the intergenerational piece as well to involve and bring children through and get the relationship going differently.
Extra service, basically, isn't it? Just that extra layer of service, and like you say, the core of it, just not wanting to let people down, which is something you said to us a few times. So
yeah, that's definitely something that is in my DNA and why I think I'm successful.
Well, I think we're kind of getting towards the end. So should we have a look at some sort of quick questions that have come through? I think you've probably answered this, but one habit every advisor should do.
I mean, review your diary. Have an hour in your diary that says reflection time. Look back at where you spent your time and think, how can I make that better? I think color coding diaries for me is a great way to just understand where you're spending your time and is it effective.
Yeah. Something that advisors should stop doing now.
Writing meeting notes. Use AI. Make sure you use the dictate or the translate on Word if you're in a face-to-face meeting. It can save you so much time.
Yeah.
You
can focus on the client and not worry about having to write stuff down.
I mean, just be brutal. Go through your list of contacts who you think you refer client work to and be brutal. Have an uncomfortable conversation and put an end to some relationships and just have a fresh mindset, start next week and think, right, I'm going to look at this differently.
Yeah. What else have we got here? One thing that still surprises you about your clients?
Do you know, with the bigger clients, what surprises me constantly is they've not got up-to-date wills. They've not thought about powers of attorney.
Really?
They've just done what they've always done to do certain things. And it never ceases to amaze me that certain professionals might just look at something with a very blinkered view, but had they just, step back, especially if you're thinking about people that might be making large gifts or creating capital gains tax to do certain things, or if they're philanthropic, there's lots of things that people just do what they've always done, and it's a tick box, isn't it? If you get your tax return done, if something's jumping out on a tax return that actually that could have been made better, it's too late because the tax return's in, I will look at that and say, well, we don't want that to happen again. and we need to think about this differently. We need to speak in advance, and you need to put me in touch with your account. You can see where it's going with this. Always,
Yep.
it is the circle of trust.
Yeah, yeah. Final question. I think it's quite a good one to end on. If you were starting again tomorrow, would you do anything differently?
Great question.
Ooh. Well, I've got all my processes set up now. So it's like if I was starting afresh tomorrow, then I think I would want to have found my voice sooner and be more positively challenging and direct with clients around the areas that we're going to take them through and what courses of action we're going to take. I think when I first started, I used different language, or it might have taken me a little bit longer to be challenging or to say that's really not good. But in first meetings now, if someone's made a decision and it's not particularly good, I'm very sensitive as to how I might talk about that. But I am really direct on saying this needs to change and we are going to be changing this, like the positive close piece. So I think if I'd learned that sooner, I'd have been more successful quicker.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I was starting again to hit the ground running, I'd want to be more like that.
Well, thank you. That's been absolutely brilliant. I think we've run out of time. So
it's gone really
huge
quick.
Thank you. I know
it has, isn't it?
It's been great. Huge thank you, Anne-Marie, for being so candid and sort of sharing that incredible insight. Thanks, James. Thanks to everybody for dialing in.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed the session, and I hope that people have picked up some useful tips. And this is obviously the first one in this series. We wanted to get a stellar guest for the first one, so Anne-Marie, you've done that brilliantly. So thank you.
Not sure who's going to follow that, really.
I know. Yeah, watch the space for the next one that we're going to do. But no, that's been brilliant. Thank you, and
appreciate your time.
Have a great weekend.
And you, thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.